We are continuing in the following chapter. You recall we finished chapter 31 and we're going on to chapter 32. I want to give a little bit of introduction precisely to chapter 32, about chapter 32, that this is one of the fundamental prakim chapters in Tanya, as it deals, namely because it deals one of the fundamental mitzvahs in the Torah. We know love your fellow yid, fellow friend as yourself. The Rabbi Akiva becomes a great rule, and again a basis for all of Torah. It's a great rule in Torah, to be precise, in Rabbi Akiva's expression. Then you have Hillel famously said when the so-to-come convert came into him and he said he wanted to convert himself, and he wants to hear the Torah on one foot, and Rabbi Hillel said, what is despisable, what is hateful, what is something which you don't appreciate, don't do to another person. And the rest of the Torah is all pirusha, whole explanation to all this, which you see time and again and throughout the entire Torah, through the entire Talmud. How Avos Yisrael, loving a fellow yid, another fellow friend, is something which is a davar yisodi, something which is a basis, a fundamental mitzvah in the Torah. And even we know that even the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and not only that, it lasted, the Golus lasted unfortunately almost 2,000 years because of the senseless hatred which existed. So we understand from this itself, in other words, the people were adherent to the voice of Hashem when it came to other matters of Torah mitzvahs, learning Torah, doing mitzvahs, prayer, etc. In this very mitzvah, they compromised, and that's, you see how important it is to Hashem that to the extent that Hashem, again, in contrast to the first Beis Hamikdash, when we were weak in all the above, in Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim, learning Torah, in our service, in our prayer, in our Gemilas Chasadim, and Hashem put us into exile, but it only lasted 70 years, relatively, in the face of almost 2,000 years. We will see over here, and then conversely, in the second Beis Hamikdash, they were careful with the three principles, the Torah, Vedic, Gemilas Chasadim, generally, but they were lacking in Avos Yisrael, lacking in loving a fellow friend, and which again, which led us to such a deep and complicated and painful galus for so many years, which again demonstrates yet once again in the so many examples which the Torah gives, and Torah Shebiksav and Torah Shebal Peh, points out the essentiality of this mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, loving a fellow friend, of loving a fellow yid. So famously that this Perek Lamed Beis, which is interesting also, its Leiv, we know it was with precision that it was placed at the 32nd chapter. The Leiv is the heart, which Avos Yisrael, again, an expression of love, is associated with heart. When it comes to, equally when it comes to loving a fellow yid, Ve'ohavta l'recha kamecha, Torah says, one must love, not only act in the form of kindness via one's external expression, but it has to literally be an ahava, an actual love. So we will, again, so that was the Perek Leiv in Tanya. But again, it's obviously there's a connection to the previous chapters, and we will begin Vihine, which is again right in the very beginning of the chapter. That's on the original text, page Mem Aleph. Zahad made a bracha. I would just point out that this chapter the Alter Rebbe so eloquently points out what stands behind this mitzvah, and how we could perfectly make sense of the mitzvah, because it needs explanation. How can I expect a person? Torah says, "V'ahavta l'recha kamecha," love your fellow friend as yourself. It's like the Yerushalmi actually asks. Yerushalmi asks, it's kind of impossible. You could love your fellow friend, but how could you demand kamecha like yourself? the self-love, a self-contained love which exists within every person as a human being, is something natural, and it's how could you demand and how could you expect someone to love a fellow friend exactly like yourself? Now, when Torah does ask that, Torah demands that, means it's becomes a practical, a pragmatic mitzvah, something which we can, it is attainable, something which we can comply with 100%. If it wasn't so, if we didn't have the ability to love a fellow friend, kamocha, like one's own self, Torah would never demand it from us. And if Torah does, it means that we could fulfill this mitzvah, again, not only 90% but 100%, to love your fellow friend as yourself. So the Yerushalmi basically asks the question, Yerushalmi answers that another Yid is like another limb of yours. Another, like, for example, he gives the example that if a right hand, it's like a right hand and left hand. It looks like two entities. To a certain extent, it's two separate parts of the person, kind of even to the extending like two different two separate entities, again, to a certain extent. But it would be ridiculous if someone would do something wrong with his right hand, that the left hand would rebuke the right hand, like in any form or fashion. It would hit it or so, in a way of kind of rebuke. We don't think we're talking about anything serious, but the left hand wouldn't rebuke the right hand, and vice versa, because one would perhaps repent if he did something wrong, but he would not consider both hands, even though on the surface they can appear as two entities, because they're not. They're part of one person. And the same thing the Yerushalmi says, in essence, all Yidden are one entity, and therefore we ought to, and we can, and therefore we ought to love a fellow friend as yourself, because he is yourself. Now, but that itself needs explanation, and this is, again, the Alter Rebbe is going to explain this mitzvah in a very special way, I would add. Behine, at the very beginning of the Perek, through fulfilling this above mention, which again, when we say Haniskarim Hanal is Haniskarim La'el, mentioned above, this includes the chapter 29 and chapter 30, the chapter 29 and 30, and 31, where the Alter Rebbe points out that a Yid has to divide the reaction to and towards his animal soul, that he is, from his perspective, the animal soul and the bodily desires, the animalistic desires, and to divide that with the simchas hanefesh, with the joy and elation of the soul, referring to the nefesh elikis, the godly soul, and its important and special and auspicious type of opportunity it constantly has, or that constant auspicious opportunity, these auspicious opportunities to connect with the divine, with Hashem Himself via Torah mitzvahs, which is again expressed namely via the decision, via the resolutions, or the resolute devotion, or resolute commitment of the nefesh elikis, of the godly soul, to divide the two. The nivza be'ein of nimis li's gufei, the perspective of his body and his animal soul, is gufei nivza be'nimas be'einov. It should be ashamed. Literally, nivza means ashamed. Be'nimas be'einov meaning it is disgusted in his eyes. It's nimas is mi'us. It's abhorrent in his eyes. Would mean to say that from the perspective of his body, which constantly sends the messages, the bodily and the animalistic messages, that arouses in the person a certain bizayon, a certain shame, and a certain the body and his nefesh bahamis are nivza, means say it's in his eyes, be'einav is in his eyes, it's shamed, it's shameful, it's something which is disgusted with him, because they constantly disturb, they constantly send signals which are contrast to the signals coming from the godly soul. And the joy, where should there be joy invested? The simcha say, should be invested in simchas hanefesh, should be invested in the simcha of the soul, levada, solely, which means the simcha. Any joy should be the investment of, the joy should be invested in soul, in soulful experiences, the soulful ability to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu via the Torah mitzvahs. That's where the joy should be expressed. So again, dividing the two, mitzat haguf, the understanding that there's two entities. There's the body and the nefesh habahamis, and then the godly soul. Again, one could look in the previous chapters, and starting from Chavtes in this particular message, Chavtes and Lamed, and then Lamed Aleph, which the Alter Rebbe says not to mix the two expressions, the two feelings, the condescending and the deriding of the body and the animal soul, again, as a result of it sending signals which are contrary to Ratzon Hashem, try to drive us towards the bodily, towards the animalistic, and to that, to express a nivze be'eno of nimas, like it says, a leiv nishbar v'nitke. These are psukim which are taken from Perek Nun Aleph of Tehillim, the famous Perek Nun Aleph of Tehillim, where the Alter Rebbe, again, the Alter Rebbe points out the importance of this nivze be'eno of nimas, the importance of leiv nishbar v'nitke, the broken heart, the broken spirit, which brings down the chutzpah, the audacity, the audacious expressions of the nefesh habahamis. One could look, and then in the simcha to understand. No, I have the ability. Remember, if we learned the previous chapter, namely the last chapter. No, I have the ability. I will not yet. My spirits will not be solely down, because the looking down or being mevaza, being shameful in my eyes, and this broken heart or broken spirit is only from the perspective of my animal soul and my guf, my body. But I have so much to be rejoiceful with, which is the simchas nefesh, because from the perspective of my nefesh, I can connect on a constant basis to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As he says, he explain the word tshuva. I have the ability to return, tshuva in the context of return, to literally become one with my Creator in the same fashion as I was one with my Creator prior to my neshama coming down into this world. So this is the true joy in uplifted spirit and elation, which the joy in the nefesh, despite not getting rid of his animalistic temptations and his bodily desires, yet I could stay focused and express true, genuine elation when it comes to nefesh, when it comes to soul, anything which is associated with the experience and the signals of the nefesh and the experience of the nefesh as it connects itself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when dividing this, and again one could look at the previous chapters, you have it on Tanya, you could put in a link, the word Tanya, you find all the previous classes, and again more in an organized manner via the website tanyaonline.com, where everything is, where all the prakim, all the previous chapters are clearly divided and laid out in a way that it's easy access to them, and they're divided and compartmentalized with chapters, and then every chapter there's different classes per chapter, but again very Baruch Hashem, very neatly organized. And namely, there you have it with the text, that you can follow along with the text, the classes with the text, so you can look at this message so clearly. And as the Alter Rebbe expands on this and expounds on this in the previous chapters. So based on this, when we fulfill this above mentioned message, which is namely this. Elaborated on in the these previous chapters, again Chavtes 29, 30 and 31, Harezu derech yishara v'kalo love lideki mitzvahs v'afta l'recha kamecha. This is a straight way and an easy way to come to the fulfillment of the mitzvah of v'afta l'recha kamecha, love your fellow friend as yourself, l'chol nefesh miYisrael, to every Jewish soul, migadil v'ad koton, from great to small, to no exclusions. Love, when Hashem says love every yid, love your fellow yid as yourself, it means every single yid, not necessarily a great Talmid Chacham, a pious Jew. Migadil v'ad koton, Torah made no exceptions at all. Refers to recha, which is a yid, and therefore it's migadil v'ad koton. But through the above mention, the message, if we internalize and we exercise and we execute this message, so this becomes a straight way and an easy way to fulfill this mitzvah. And again, why do we need ease, and why do we need something to explain as this mitzvah? Because on the outset it's difficult. You can, as we mentioned before, as the Yerushalmi asks, you could tell a Yid, could command us to love a fellow Yid, but how could you say kamecha? How could you say to love him as you're like yourself? It's interesting just to note, heard a saying, I forget it was, I think it was the Ruzhiner, one great tzaddik, he had the question the other way. It's interesting, he had the question the other way. I believe it was the Ruzhiner. He was once reading this pasuk, so the Yerushalmi asks, how could you love your fellow friend as yourself? But he said, he went, how can I equate the reyacha to kamecha? It's when do I love myself? Quite on the contrary, I despise myself, and so much easier to love another person, to love another yid, even much more than myself. Kamecha, he said, or fe, or not chas v'shalom fe, but he didn't understand. He was on such a level that the reyacha was when he thought about another yid, he looked at another yid as kodesh kadoshim kamecha. He never considered him in his own eyes. He was so insignificant. He didn't understand the pasuk. How could Tatus say, how can I love a fellow friend kamecha? I have to love him so much more because kamecha. Reyacha kamecha, he said. Kamecha, he didn't consider himself anything. He was a great tzaddik, but because he was a great tzaddik, naturally, he didn't consider himself. He didn't give himself any importance, no significance, and quite on the contrary, he despised himself to a great degree. In other words, it was complete bittul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, complete self-nullification. So there was no self. And therefore he felt that Reyacha deserves true love as opposed to Kamecha. So he asked the question, but again, that's a certain level in Avodas Hashem, somebody which is special. In this case, again, if I believe it was the Ruzhiner, which was known to be one of the great tzaddikim which again lived in the last 200 years, about 200 years ago, 180 years ago. In any case, but the Torah demands from us to love every yid when we go about cotton. Again, how do we do that? So based on exercising and implementing this message of these previous chapters, again, the nivza be'ein of nimos from the perspective of the body, and the true joy and elation is from the perspective of the soul. This becomes a straight way, an easy way. Right, an easy way to fulfill this mitzvah because his body is disgusted and is abhorrent by him, and conversely, from the perspective of the soul, who knows, who could identify, who could pinpoint its greatness and its virtuous, exalted state when you're in its source, in its roots, belikim chayim, in the life in the God, which is called the God of life. Who could ever say that I know the nefesh of this person, what level it is? We know that every single nefesh stems from HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvei devatzmei. The pasuk says a nefesh, a likis, a godly soul is a chelik elakamimal. It's a pasuk which says it's a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you look at another yid, and when you know that he has a neshama, so you have no idea, because we cannot identify the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we cannot identify the mile of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so you cannot even reach or adequately comprehend, even not adequate, and there's no comprehension, there's no understanding, we have no way to identify and say, I know how the level of this neshama. Who could know the level of a neshama? When you look at another yid and you perceive the other yid, because from the perspective of his neshama, his soul, which is soul is a part of God, and just like we have no understanding, the gdula, the true essential greatness and virtue of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so too we have no way to truly comprehend or attain the greatness of and the maila and the virtue of a soul as it's in its source, from the perspective of its source of B'sharshe, it's in its source and its root, and again in HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, which is called Elikim Chayim. B'shigam shekulim mas'imeis v'agav av echad l'kolonu. We're all mat'im, in other words, from the perspective of that, we're all part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you're dealing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's one God. So in essence, from that perspective, it's a one entity. It's a one entity of Yidden. Va'av echad l'kulanu. It's one Father to everybody. Because from the perspective of us being a chelik l'kamimal, a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're kulan mas'imes. They're all on par. Because again, there's one HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so there's one entity of Yidden. And therefore, no one could tell a brother, for example, you don't look like me, and therefore, that is more mine than yours. That's a nonsensical statement. Because the Av, if it's a true biological father, he's a father exactly from the perspective of the connection of two children to a father. From that perspective, Kula Masimas, they're all on par. They all have the same connection to that Av, to their father. And again, it would be an absurd statement says you do not behave or you don't look like me. Therefore, my father, I'm more son to my father than you are, or more daughter to my mother or my father than you are. It's not a correct. It's incorrect. It's not true, and it's incorrect. Naturally, it's an untrue statement. Naturally, it's an incorrect statement. Naturally, it's a nonsensical statement. It's an absurd statement because mitzat from the perspective of Av, this being a father, and if he's a biological father, he's a biological father to every one of his children equally. Kulon matimot. Similarly, when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's no one can say that, well, you don't look exactly like me, you don't do exactly like I do, therefore the Av, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is really more my father than yours. No. Chas v'shalom, it's wrong, and it's fundamentally wrong, because we're dealing with the Yid. Not again, the Yid does not begin from what he does and how he performs and what he observes. The Yid is the chelik of the Yid is from the perspective of the true Yid is his neshama. And from the perspective of the neshama is a chelik of the kamimal. It's part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if it's part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Av echad l'kulonu, we have one father to every single Yid, l'migadol vat kotan, v'lachein, from great to someone who's not so great or even lower than that. V'lachein ikul kol Yisrael amachim mamash, and therefore all Yidden are called brothers. Mamash means truly brothers, not just kind of a statement we're all brothers, but be'etzem we are essentially brothers, because in such shedish nafsham b'Hashem echad, because of the source of the nefesh in the one Hashem. The only thing is that the only thing is that the bodies are separated. And so what if the bodies are separated? So this is really the challenge, and this stands with behind the mitzvah. What are you looking at? What is significant to you? If body is significant to you, in other words, in your own life and in your own even observance and in your own avoid, in your own service to God, body stands. In other words, the emphasis is on the guf, or perhaps your non-service to God. In other words, in your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when body is the emphasis is on guf, is on body, it will be practically, virtually impossible to fulfill this mitzvah of ahavta l'recha kamecha, because it's true mitzad neshama, from the perspective of neshama, we're truly one, and we're truly brothers. And you even say this, it says over here really two things over here. We're brothers, but more than that, from the perspective of the shadish, just like children, from this perspective of the shadish and makir, in other words, their source and their roots, they are one entity. Similarly, all Yidden are more than brothers; they're one entity because they come from Hashem Echad. And just like there's one Hashem, there's one Am Yisrael, there's one entity of Yidden. But even on the surface, as we become separate neshamas, kaviyachol, it's achim mamash, it's brothers. And again, the Rebbe adds mamash because it's taka true. It's not just like, hey, we're brothers, we're Yidden b'nei Yisrael, we're brothers. We are be'emes mamash brothers, because we come from Hashem Echad, and Hashem is one, Yidden are one entity. And the only thing is, this neshama did not remain on the level of neshama, and that's where the difficulty comes in. This neshama entered a body, and the body is different. One body is not identical to the other. And biologically, we're all, from the perspective of bodies, not necessarily we're brothers. There's a family which is with our siblings, brothers and sisters, and another family which are not brothers and sisters. Biologically, we're talking about from the body perspective. And then you have people which are b'chlal very distant, and people who from the people who, and especially when I look at the Yid and I don't find favor, and I can't find favor for whatever reason, which that itself is questionable. Why shouldn't we find favor in another Yid, even in the way in his conduct? But even if I do not find favor in another Yid, and I say, look, from the perspective of Neshama, I have no problem loving him, but at the end of the day, this Neshama did not remain divested from anything, from guf, from investing in another entity. The Neshama entered the guf. So if the Eibishter would tell us, as again a Neshama divested, theoretically Neshama divested from body, love your fellow, every single Yid as yourself, then I understand, because the other Yid is myself, because we're both a chelik l'kamimal, we're both part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Echad, so in essence we are essentially one. But it did not stop there. Neshama entered into a body. So that's where the question, again, that's basically the question of Yerushalmi, as we read the pasuk, the Eibishter tells of not on the level of Neshama, the way it's divested from a body, prior to its entering into the body. It's after the Neshama entering into the body, so then the gufim become chulakim, the bodies become separate. So that's where the question is. So I understand this again from the perspective of the Neshama, but the Neshama entered in the guf. When the Neshama entered the guf, then the guf is mechuluk, one body is different than the other. Very different than the other. So how could you expect me to have Ahavas Yisrael, to love the Yid, another Yid, in the same way that like I love myself after the Neshama entered the body, where from the perspective of the body, the guf mechulakim, and then this what Alter Rebbe says, this is the very challenge. Are you a Yid what stands as a primary focus, your primary focus, and what is the primary, what is virtuously primaire to you, what is your initial focus or your emphasis? What is the emphasis of that? What do you place emphasis on? If you place emphasis and this is what is important and significant to you is guf, is body, you will never be able to fulfill this mitzvah bishleimus in its complete manner. You'll be able to perhaps do a favor to another Yid, think about another Yid, talk to another Yid, kind words, but to love a Yid like yourself, it would be impossible, because you're looking from the lenses, you're looking from mitzvah guf, from the perspective of body. From the perspective of God, body is guf mechaloki. But if you look from inside the neshama, in other words, what is a primary focus to you, which stands what is a superiority, what is a primary focus in your avodah, in your service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is your neshama. You're a neshama yid. So then you will look at the other yid, the same thing, with the lenses from a neshama to another neshama, and then you will be able to fulfill this mitzvah 100%. And not only that, it wouldn't even be a challenge nor a question, because from the perspective of the neshama, we're achim mamish, we're true brothers, and not only true brothers, nor kulam asimis, we're in essence we're all one. So this is the challenge, and this is why the Alter Rebbe connects it to the previous chapters. From Yitzad HaGuf, from the perspective of body, there has to be nivza bein of nimos, like it says, the Alter Rebbe, like David HaMelech said in Kapitel Nun Aleph, that there's the lev nishbar, a broken heart, and a broken spirit, and as you look down in a condescending fashion, and anything which is associated with the animalistic desires and your bodily drives, and it becomes nivza, it becomes shameful and abhorrent. So the guf is the contrary. You find a disturbance to you, and you look down upon, and again in a condescending manner. You don't give significance, you don't give priority to guf. And where's your simcha? Your simcha is simchas hanefesh. Your joy and elation, where your ecstasy is in anything in soulful matters. You're the individual which can keep this from mitzvah perfectly, because you're a neshama yid, and what's important to you, what's significant is neshama. Where do you rejoice? Not in yoni aguf. You rejoice in Yoni Neshama. You rejoice in anything associated with soul, not in anything associated with guf, with body. Quite on the contrary, from the perspective of body, is nivza bein of nimas. You shun the body. And again, we don't mean to say expressions of mortification. You got to deal. You have to take care of your body, but in the context of significance, you shun your body. And its nivza becomes shameful and hate and disgust and so on. Like again, the Alter Rebbe elaborated in the previous chapters, because it sends all these signals based on, again, the avodah between man and his creator. It sends its signals which is contrary to my mandate in this world, in learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and making this world a home and abode for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Therefore, it's nivza bein of nimas. But because when that's your focus in your relationship with you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but in the end of the day, this is what this is what you prioritize. You prioritize soul, because if you have simcha, you invested in soul. If simcha becomes simchas nefesh, anything associated with guf and nefesh means you shun. Because you're such a yid, which you're expressing again these expressions in your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that makes it attainable to you. Not only attainable to you, but easy to fulfill this mitzvah of ahavta l'recha kamecha, looking another yid, loving another yid as yourself. Because if you prioritize guf, if you prioritize guf, and guf is important to you, and guf is significant to you, so then if guf is important to you and guf is significant to you, then you'll never be able to fulfill this mitzvah. Because guf and mechalakim, in the respective of the Yiddish body, it's a different, because the neshama they invest in a body, and the bodies are taka different, the different personalities. Like your mother says, ein day same Shabbos, two people are not the same. No two people are the same. But if you're looking from the perspective of guf, true again, and if you're looking from the perspective of guf and mechalakim, they're divided. So you can't fulfill this mitzvah because you're a guf yid. This is what's significant. This is what you prioritize. If you're a neshama yid, your simcha, wherever you have simcha, and you have contentment, it's about soul contentment. Means to say you're a neshama yid. You look at another yid, you're looking straight as neshama. You're looking straight as neshama. There's no question. It's not only kishara becomes a kala. It's not only straight. It becomes kala. It becomes easy. Because if you're a neshama yid, you look at the other yid also as a neshama. And from the perspective of neshama, we're all brothers, and more so kulam masinis, we're all one. Essentially one, because we have Avech l'kolon, Hashem echad, and Am b'nei Yisrael are one. And that's what he says. Those who make their bodies and anything associated with body even a main factor, and the soul becomes secondary. It's not that they don't give any attention to their soul, but nafshim becomes tfela, becomes secondary. The Rebbe says you will not be able, you'll not be able to have true love and true brothership or friendship or a brotherly love and a brotherly affection to another yid, a true brotherly love and a brotherly affection by name between you and the other yid. Everything will be dependent what he contributed to you. If he helped you, you'll love him more. If he didn't help you so much, you'll love him less. And what's the you in this case? If he helped, if he did a favor to you, which means he contributed to the contentment of your body, and that's what makes you happy, because you're a guf yid, your nafsham, your nefesh is secondary. So if he did something good to you as a guf, then you'll like him a little more. And if you did something less to you, and maybe even took away something or minimized something which contributed to the contentment of your guf, you'll naturally love him less, because you're looking through the lenses of guf, because you're a guf yid. It's not that you're not a frummi yid and don't give attention to your nefesh, but your nefesh is tfela, it's secondary to your guf. Your guf is a priority. And if your guf is a priority, you'll never be able to have a true, genuine, authentic love to another yid. Because guf and mechalak, from the perspective of guf, the taka is separated. Every yid is separated. As opposed to for your nefesh yid, your simchas nefesh yid, there's no shayla on the outset. The Alter Rebbe doesn't even have to return to that. It becomes so obvious over here. In other words, even in this phrase, this becomes so obvious. You're a nefesh yid, you look at another yid as a nefesh. You look at the other as a nefesh, which is a neshama, which is a chelik el-kamimal. One Eibush, me and him are essentially and truly one. This is what Hillel Azakin, the famous Hillel, which said on this mitzvah, again getting back to the story when to become convert came into Hillel, and he said he wants to learn the entire Torah on one foot. And Hillel told him, love what you despise. Do not do what you despise something to be done to you, or this which is despised, this which one would theoretically do to you, and that a despised action, do not do to another fellow yid. And he said that's the entire Torah, and the idach pirushahu, and the rest of the Torah is just explanation of that. And how did Hillel say that? We know Hillel wasn't just kidding around. Hillel was Hillel Azakin, and someone came into him. And again, if we know when he came into Beis Shammai said, how could you learn the whole entire Torah on 1 foot? There's so much more to Torah, even a convert which comes to convert. We don't spill out, we tell him the 613 mitzvahs, we don't spill out all the mitzvahs, but nonetheless, at once, as the Rambam says, is brought in halacha, based on the Gemara, that we teaspoon him the mitzvahs, but it takes certainly much longer than standing on 1 foot. So how did Beis Shammai, so how did Beis Hillel, again, so that's why Beis Shammai said that I cannot teach you the entire Torah on 1 foot. And it made so much sense. Because again, even though we don't spell out the entire Torah mitzvahs, but even this which we do expose the convert to, or so to the becoming convert to, takes more time than standing on 1 foot. He came into Hillel. Hillel said, no, what the Sani Lach, something what you despise, don't do it to another person. And that's the entire Torah. The rest of the Torah is Pirushu. And Hillel again was Hillel Azakin. He meant every word he said, because Hillel was really telling him, that individual, and to every single Yid in his times, and every single Yid in the generations to come, this is indeed the entire Torah. Kol ha-Torah kula. This is indeed the entire Torah, and the rest of the Torah remains pirushahu. Explanation to this, based on what we just said, we can understand what Hillel, the message of Hillel, because he said, "V'sheish kol ha-Torah hu kol ha-Torah hu." What is the foundation and the source and a basis to the entire Torah? What is the point? What is the objective of Torah? That the person should prioritize soul over body. The body wants to sleep. The soul, the message of the nefesh says, no, we're going to get up and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The body wants to be lazy, and says, no, put on tefillin, wrap yourself in a talus, daven. No, I want to daven a little faster, and I don't want to pay the attention to the Pirush HaMilos. I'm a little laid back. No, the Neshama's message says no. It's about exercising Neshama experiences, davening, learning, starting from doing Negel and getting up and saying Meidani and putting on tefillin and going to shul, and then I want to maybe run somewhere else. No, I'll stay for a shir. The whole Torah, again, this is the Lulav and Esrog and the Shefer, the whole Torah is about elevating the nefesh over the guf, prioritizing the nefesh over guf. Ad ikra v'shosha d'cholalmin, to the source of all ilamis, of all worlds, which to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is the point, and this is the objective of the entire Torah. And again, as we see it, I'm saying on the most simple, elemental level, when there's the constant conflict between body and soul. The body wants to do one thing, and the soul says no. So every part of Torah may be in the positive mitzvahs. As again in the examples we said, I want to sleep, no, I'll wake up, and I want to walk around, no, I'll do Negel Basa first. I want to do stam, sit around, no, I'll go to shul. In other words, it's all about prioritizing the neshama over the guf. It's the whole. That's the objective of the entire Torah. So to mitzvahs leises, the body sends a signal to speak that, do that, think that, and so on. The Torah. And the Yid fulfilling the mandate of Torah says no. So because that's the entire Torah, that's the whole point of Torah. To elevate, to prioritize the neshama over the guf, and to elevate the neshama, that it should be that it should be able to express itself fully as it leaves. In other words, as it ejects from the bodily desires and the animalistic desires that comes to the nefesh hamis, and it elevates itself at ikra v'sharsha the cholam, to the source of everything and of all worlds, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the point of Torah. And the point of Torah is to draw the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu amongst Yidden. That's the point of Torah. Commissions bar lekam, like we're going to explain later. That means to the source of all to the neshama of all Yidden, that the Eibishter Hashem should be one with the neshama of the Yid, echad be'echad, which means the achdus of Hashem should connect with the Knesset Yisrael, with Yidden. That is the objective of the Torah. So now we can understand why Hillel Azakin said, love your fellow friend. What is despisable to you, don't do to your fellow friend, because this is what Torah is all about. To look at another Yid from the perspective of Nefesh, because the whole point of Torah is to bring the neshama closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to elevate the neshama Firstly, to prioritize neshama over guf, but more than that, elevate. Again, the lashon Alter Rebbe is lahagbiya, to elevate the neshama. The neshama should become one with its creator. And again, this is what Alter Rebbe is alluding to, what we said in the previous chapter, and that's the point of tshuva, which comes through ma'asim tevim. If you remember the Alter Rebbe's pirush tshuva, even the literal pirush of tshuva, ma'asim tevim is repentance and then good deeds. But the Alter Rebbe says the ma'asim tevim itself is the tshuva, because tshuva, ruch tashav elikim shen son, and neshama came down in a plunge into a body, and it can get really involved and tainted in the bodily reality. The point of ma'asim tevim, learning, he learns Torah and does ma'asim tevim, that he ejects the neshama from the guf, and it elevates the neshama higher and higher. Tshuva, baruch tashav elikim shen son, becomes one with HaKadosh Baruch. That's the whole point of the entire Torah, and every part of Torah a person learns. It's again doing tshuva, means to say he's returning the neshama to its source, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, reuniting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As he explained, he gave the example as a prince which was completely involved in captivity and involved in lowly involvements, and then he is freed and is able to unite with his father. And that's the experience of every piece of part of Torah that Yid learns, and that is the experience of every mitzvah that a Yid performs, that he returns, he's magbiya as nefesh, he elevates his nefesh from the confinements of the guf, from the nefesh mahabs, from the body and the animal soul, and he returns it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to become one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, that's milmata l'mayla. And again, the point of Torah is as well from milmayla l'mata, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in order to draw the infinite light of God. Blessed be He, b'Knesset Yisrael. The Yidden should become echad be'echad, one. So that's the whole point of Torah. So now we can again understand why Hillel told him that to love a fellow Yid, that is the entire Torah, because Torah is about achdus, Torah is about unity, Torah is about oneness, Yidden together, the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Knesset Yisrael as one. Yidden stand as one entity, and Yidden through their avodah elevate themselves and connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the actus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, lemevi echad be'echad. So when you do to another person which is despisable to you, you're demonstrating pirud, every disunity, anything which is just the opposite of echad be'echad, the oneness which is expressed constantly through Torah. So that is what Hillel said. You be careful in Avos Yisrael, because Avos Yisrael is about achdus. That is the pirush kol haTorah kula, because this is what Torah is about. Mevi echad be'echad, about all about unity, all about oneness. V'lo sheyesh pirud chas v'shalom min neshamis. Not when there is separation among neshamis. D'kutshu brichu leishaya basar pogim, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu will not dwell in a place which is blemished, where there's disunity, and because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not coming there, so you're, from his perspective, a great perspective and point of view, if you don't excel in the mitzvah of Avos Yisrael, and you find that you're going to do all the other all the other commitments, you're going to excel in the other commitments of your learning Torah and performing mitzvahs, you're disturbing, or you're interfering rather, with the objective and goal which is supposed to come as a result of your learning Torah and of your doing mitzvahs, because it's about achdus, about HaKadosh Baruch Hu uniting with Knesset Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not ready to come into blemished territory. If it's blemished, which means if you cannot align yourself, you cannot coincide with another Yid, you're demonstrating disunity between another Yid. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm not coming in there. So what is the point of your whole Torah mitzvahs? Is to bring that achdus, that echad be'echad, when that echad, which is Hashem, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says, I cannot come into blemished territory. So if there's pirud by neshamas, if there's separation in neshama, if we do not excel again in this mitzvah, obviously Yisrael means to say there's pirud, there's separation between the neshamas. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not ready to come, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not ready to come. You're compromising on your whole observance of Torah mitzvahs. You're compromising on your whole commitment to your learning Torah, and you're doing mitzvahs, or the objective of the goal, or the result, or what you're accomplishing through your learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Which is again, it's about mevi echad be'echad, and that echad is not ready to come into a blemished, again, in a place where there's no unity, and that's what he says. And therefore, again, Hillel Zaken said, excel in Avos Yisrael. So excel in Avos Yisrael, you're bringing about your calling. That itself is inviting HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come into a place which is achdus, where there's achdus. This is kol haTorah kula, because this is the point of Torah. The point of Torah is to elevate the neshama, and the neshama should touch the divine to become one with the divine. And again, milmata l'mayla, from the perspective of the neshama, as it ascends on high, tshuva, tashuv Elokim Asher Nasana, and then milmayla lamata is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's the interest, divine interest, to become one with Yidden, to become one with every single Yid, to become one with Knesset Yisrael as a whole. That's the point of Torah mitzvahs. But if there is separation between one Yid and another Yid, you're interfering with that echad bi echad. So that's what he told him. You excel in Ahavas Yisrael, which is despisable to you. Do not do it to another person. The other Yid should be, in your eyes, like yourself. And again, with this beer, because he essentially is yourself. And more than that, Kulam Masimas were one entity. That's the greatest invitation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, wanting again to connect, to be echad be'echad with us as Knesset Yisrael collectively and individually. And that's what the whole point of Torah mitzvahs is, as we explained again, lemevi echad be'echad, to become one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And this is what we say every day in davening. In every single day davening in Sim Shalim, we say that blesses HaKadosh Baruch Hu together as one with the light of your face. That's a literal meaning. And it's explained elsewhere by Arichus in length. The Pirush which the Alter Rebbe is alluding to. What is the Pirush the Alter Rebbe is alluding to? So the literal meaning is that the message which we're asking Hashem, Barcheinu Avinu, bless us our Father, Be'er Panecha, with the light of your face. Kulani Echad, because we're all together, we're in shul davening together. All Am Yisrael are davening together, or all Am Yisrael as an entity. Please bless us. The Rebbe says there's an inner meaning, a different pirush to it. Again, this is the simple meaning of this request. This is the simple meaning of this beseech, this prayer. Hashem bless us. Hashem, you're our Father. Bless us with the light of your face. But the Rebbe says there's a different pirush to it. That Barcheinu Avinu, Kulanu ki echad, paz. That when is there the bracha of our Father is solely when Kulanu ki echad, where we all stand as one. And again, this bracha will be ber panech, with the light of your face. Not only Barcheinu Avinu, blesses HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kulanu ki echad, again, as we're all one, ber panech, with the light of your face. Barcheinu Avinu, when are we zeicha? When can we have the blessing of you, our Father? Is Kulanu ki echad, solely when we will be as one. Because if we're not as one, HaKadosh Baruch Hu leisharye basar pagim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not dwell in a place which is blemished, when there is missing achdus, where there's missing unity. So if you want the Barcheinu Avinu, you want the blessing of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's precisely Kulanu ki echad. And you know what kind of blessing you're going to get? You're going to get the Eir Panecha, the light of the Pnimi, is the inwardness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that comes with the condition of Kulanu ki echad, based on this explanation. Because when there's the he's not coming. You could be the greatest frume yid. If you're involved in any pirud, in any machlekes, if you're involved in any disunity among one yid and another yid, or one group and another group, you might feel, or you might believe that you're drawing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into your neshama, into your system, again, individually and collectively, as a community. But truly, the opposite is true. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not come down. Similar, and again, very similar to what we said, this first Beis HaMikdash, there was problems. There was problems in the most grave Avedas. Gila Arieh, Shvichas Damim, the big three Avedas even, as the Gemara tells us. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu exiled the Jewish people. 70 years later, they were back home. We built another Beis HaMikdash. The second Beis HaMikdash, it says, at the end of the second Beis HaMikdash, quite on the contrary. They were Talmidei Chachamim, and they learned, and they davened, and they stayed away from Avedas. But because of the Sinas Yisrael, the baseless hatred, they could not unite. One Yid could not unite or adequately unite with another Yid. One community could have not adequately unite with another community. So they just put a blockage. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm not coming. And Rahman al-Islam, the destruction of the temple of the Beis HaMikdash and the exile of Am Yisrael is consequent. It's just simply mathematical. It's just 1 + 1 is 2. The way the Yidden succeed and more so thrive is constantly through the energy, the overt energy, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu invests within Am Yisrael. And again, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there, Yidden stand afloat beyond over all matters. They have no problem. I mean, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not only ready to, but he demonstrates clear and overt miracles if need be on a constant basis. And certainly our temples are not burnt and we're not exiled because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is together with us. Echad be'echad. You have the Echad of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Ein Ein Sof, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, together with us. There's no exile. How could there be an exile? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is one with us. But if we put a blockage to that, and that's what the Gemara says, there was a blockage to that. HaKadosh Baruch Hu leishari, you could daven from today till tomorrow. You could stand long Shemoneh Esrei, and you could shuckle your Torah, your learning Torah out. And you could believe that you're bringing elokus, godliness, down into your life as an individual or to your community. If there's a problem, if you're involved in any type of pirud, disunity between one yid and another yid, and again, one or two, or a community of another community, you put a formal blockage. HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo yisharya basar pagim. That's what Hillel's message. And that's why it says Barcheinu Avinu. You want the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You want that sweet relationship between yourself and God and yourself, and you want the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be echad, you have to be scrupulous in making sure that container of kolonik echad, that vessel, is perfect, and excel in that, and not only invest in that, but excel in that, and this should be a main focus. And in order to again receive the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you should be able to have the bracha of Avinu, and you should have the Eir Panecha of Avinu. There should be the true Echad B'Echad, and consequently all your Torah mitzvahs will accomplish this needs to be, which this would ought to accomplish, as opposed to Chas v'Shalom. Again, as we said by the second base of English, they were frum and everything. They were frum and they did everything what they had to do, but nonetheless they compromised. Not only compromised, there was baseless hatred. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu unfortunately put us into Golus, and this is almost 2,000 years because HaKadosh Baruch Hu lo yisharya basar pagim. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not dwell in a place which is blemished. And again, when there's pirud, when there's separation between one yid and another, community, therefore, Barcheinu Avinu, you want the bracha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to be kolonu ke'echad, precisely when we're all one. Have a wonderful evening.